Welcome to the Sencast. My name is Dale Pickles, Managing Director of B Squared and the host of the Sencast. If this is your first Sencast, then welcome. In this week's episode, we discuss supporting neurodiverse learners in secondary schools and further education. And my guest this week was Susana Gonzalez, the Director and Founder of ND Bright Brains, an educational consultancy dedicated to helping neurodiverse students succeed in mainstream schools. Susana is a neurodivergent specialist with over 20 years of experience as a teacher, and Susana provides training based on the idea that all schools can implement inclusive and cost-effective strategies to support neurodivergent students. Sounds simple, doesn't it? The Sencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared, and everyone knows we help to show the small steps of progress people with SCND make, and we can do this for a wide range of abilities and ages. But do you know about Autism Progress? This is our framework for helping profile a pupil's autism and how it impacts them. It's based on certs and looks at communication, social interaction, emotional regulation, and flexible thinking. Autism Progress also includes a wide range of strategies to help support the pupils. Visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to find out more about Autism Progress, and I'll take you through what it does and how the software can help your school. Now, let's get on with that podcast. My guest this week is Susana Gonzalez, the Director and Founder of ND Bright Brains, an educational consultancy dedicated to supporting neurodivergent students to succeed in mainstream schools. Susana is a neurodiversity specialist with over 20 years of experience as a teacher, and Susana has trained over 1,000 teachers promoting the idea that all schools can implement inclusive and cost-effective strategies to support neurodivergent students. Welcome to the show, Susana.
Thank you very much, Dale. I'm very happy to be here today talking about my favorite topic,
Excellent.
education and neurodiversity.
I love it. We're going to dive in a lot this week. And you have come along today to talk about supporting neurodiverse students in secondary schools and in further education. And secondary schools is often the place where neurodiverse students struggle the most for many different reasons. How can this be turned around so that neurodiverse students can succeed at secondary?
That's a very good question, Dale. How long do we have?
Not long enough.
For me, the most important and the first step in order to support neurodivergent students in secondary schools is to have all adults involved in education trained in neurodiversity. So adults need to understand neurodiversity. We need to embrace neurodiversity as something that is part of the human population, is the natural biological variation in brains and nervous systems. It's also there for a reason, for the survival of the species. And we need to normalize it. And also we need to accept that the school environment, in particular secondary school, is an environment that is advantageous for a certain type of brain and is very disadvantaged is for some other types of brain.
It definitely is. And I think, as you said, not only is neurodiversity has been around for a very long time and it's part of the survival of the species, it's also something that isn't just something which gets in the way of their education. It's a lifelong, I don't want to say condition, that's the wrong word. It's lifelong. It's not that once you get out of school, this won't affect you. Actually, your autism, your ADHD, your dyslexia, you've got that for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And secondary school is probably the bit where as you gain that independence, that's the bit where you really should be learning all about you, how to support what works for you best.
Absolutely. And you're spot on. So for me, the first thing is that all adults understand neurodiversity so that you are able to recognize and understand how to best support. But then also, as adults, we should be able to provide the support at an age-appropriate level to educate the children as they mature in their own neurodivergence or neurodiversity, and so that they can themselves start become accountable but also experience self-agency and the ability to self-advocate for their own needs. As you say, try different learning strategies, try different ways in which they can regulate their emotions, manage their stress, deal with friendship situations, communication. So, as part of that growing up process, which happens in secondary school so dramatically, you get them in when they're 11, really small, tiny little children, really. And then you say bye to them when they're 18, they're young adults. That is that's a key moment in their lives where the brain is really developing at a very high speed. We know that is the second peak of neuroplasticity. The first one is when we're babies, and the second one is throughout adolescence. And that is the perfect opportunity where adults can really support the development of their lagging skills and developing a positive idea of self-worth.
Unless you're neurodivergent. Because in reality, I think what happens in lots of schools is between 11 and 16, when you're in that secondary school, if you're not fitting that mold, if you're not learning in that style, which that teacher prefers, that exam board, that trust prefers, you are basically told it's your fault and you need to be able to do this. And if you can't, it's your fault. And instead of that lovely thing of growing and becoming that independent young person, what a lot of neurodivergent students learn is that they can't do things.
Yeah. I like to be positive about things. So I obviously know a lot of teachers, and I am a teacher myself. I do think that teachers, they want to help. It is a profession that you choose basically because you are very invested in working with young people, and you enjoy seeing them grow as a person and getting an education. But what I do think lacks is teachers sometimes, even when they mean well, and I'm not saying that all teachers mean well, like some of them might not mean well, but most of them will, but they will not have the understanding when they are witnessing certain behaviors. They might, because of lack of training, draw the wrong conclusion about a young person. So they're being lazy, they need a bit of tough love, they'll learn if I give them this detention. And that is with neurodivergent children, those of us that understand neurodivergent behavior, we know that that is exactly the opposite of what we need to be doing. And neurodivergent children already experience such stress levels going through the day of the school, and they have such a negative inner talk in comparison to neurotypical teenagers or other children, which they'll have a more balanced sort of inner talk, positive and negative, but more balanced. Whereas neurodivergent kids, they'll be the ones that is like, why did I do this again? Can never get anything right. That'll be the inner talk. So what they need is adults that take away the extra pressure when they make a mistake. So provide an environment where it's safe to fail. And not only that, but you can help them to get it right. And then catch them doing something right and praise them. Specific positive praise has a chemical effect on neurodivergent children, on everyone, but neurodivergent children will need it most. And it's not about just telling them they're the best in the world. That's general praise that goes nowhere. Of course, they're not going to believe you then. But it's a specific positive praise on something they have done, and also remind them of progress, because their episodic memory will be weaker than other children. So they will not be able to remember that last week they were not able to balance equations. For example, I taught chemistry, so I always think of that. And then this week they're doing it. And they would not even reward themselves internally by thinking, oh, look, I'm like really nailing it today. And last week I was really struggling. And that's where we need to come in and say, wow, look at you doing this, that you can do this today. and last week you couldn't. And whatever it is, it could also be referred to executive functions, like if a child always forgets his PE kit or his calculator for maths, the day that he brings it in, say, oh, well done. How did you do this? Help them with that metacognition, with that reflective process to build their skills. But the tensions for forgetting your calculator or forcing someone to do a trigonometry exam, like my son was, because he forgot his calculator. And he's like, well, now you're going to be doing your exam without a calculator. Then what's that achieving?
Somebody I work with, their son got a detention. He gets called in a nap. So it's there as a nap, but he's not allowed his app out because you're not allowed phones in that school. So there's detention in his phone. He forgets because it can't access his timetables from his phone. Not allowed to take his phone out. Doesn't go to detention. This happens a few times. He now gets a head teacher's detention. Gets a few of those, is now on days of internal exclusion. All because he's disorganized. And that detention just growing in severity.
That's awful.
And it's like, how about we just support? How about as adults, we acknowledge that we are all completely disorganized unless we have our phone with that calendar.
Yeah.
And going, actually, we all do this. Why can't the children do it? Why are we punishing? Why are we taking these tools away that we all use as adults and expect them to be better than us? And if they don't, they get detention.
Oh, my brain is overwhelmed with things to say. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, is with neurobiology challenges and with like executive functions or challenges, learning differences, because those challenges are invisible, it's almost like there's no faith. Like there's no, like it's not believed. A lot of adults you talk to, they still don't believe it. And of course, when you speak, I speak to you, I speak to people that understand neurodivergence, then you're talking to the converted, right? You get it, you understand it, because you have developed your own strategies as well. But it's how can we make these challenges visible? And whenever I do my talks, I have this slide, which is called the prosthetic leg analogy. And it's these three children, and the first little girl, she's missing a leg and she's got some crutches. So I always say, if this little girl comes late to your lesson, what would be your reaction to this girl? And your heart would melt, right? Because no one is going to give attention to this little girl turning up late to your lesson with a leg missing, right?
That thing, we assume she would be late because of the leg.
Correct.
We wouldn't go, she has got a prosthetic leg, but actually she's also really lazy and she can't be bothered to get out of bed. You don't go for that.
That's not going to happen.
You go for the leg, and it'll be wrong for me to do that.
Absolutely. That's never going to happen. And in fact, when kids break a leg, they are allowed to leave 5 minutes before, and it's sort of accepted. But there is a block when it comes to accepting neurodivergent challenges. There is a block because neurotypical people, they still don't believe that it is a thing. And it's not about saying that it is okay to be late, but it is about these are children. So how can we teach them? How can we support them? How can we train them so that they develop the strategies they need to, in the future, be on time to wherever they have to be? But punishments are not going to do that. So the first thing is the visibility. And then the second thing is flexibility. Flexibility in the processes in the schools is something that needs strengthening. I'm sure there are many reasons why phones are removed first thing in the morning. And to be honest, I think that's a good thing. But then, how is this child then going to remember? Then we need a different strategy. how can he find out about his detention? Or because he will not remember. In the same case as that girl missing a leg is not going to run faster than another child with both legs.
That's the thing is back in the old day, I used to have a paper book, my record book, which has your timetable in the front. You write it in the first day of term. That was always the thing you did at secondary. You get the book. They get however many thousand of those, whatever it was for the school. Every child gets one. They write their name, their timetable. You write your homework in it. Your detentions go in it. Your parents sign it. Yeah, that's pain in the butt. It costs quite a bit of money, but there's this app which we could all use. Cool.
Yeah.
Paper, or if they're using an app, they're allowed their phones out appropriately during school. That's the thing. We need to teach them how to use that phone appropriately. And we also need ourselves maybe need to learn how to use our own phones appropriately. But if you're not going to have the phones out, then you need to go back to these paper books to help the students.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's a lot of schools that have stopped using diaries, which is a shame because, or at least have it as an option, because there are a lot of children, neurodivergent children, that will benefit from writing things down because that will sort of have an effect on their memory. But if, let's say, that's not available and the phone is not available, then perhaps another electronic device, then a tablet that can be used. And then, of course, we're talking money and budgets. But whatever way, we need to provide a way in which it is possible to deliver on that demand, given the challenge that this child has of not remembering.
And there is time blindness, which is a thing. It's a real thing. But there's also kind of getting lost in your own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, the reason they are late, there are lots of things they could use to help them get organised. We have calendar reminders. We have alarms on our phones. There's lots of things we could use to let us know. My nephew's school, the head teacher decided it didn't like the sound of the alarm, the bell, school bell. Didn't like it. It was too disruptive. So they stopped sounding the school bell. But he also wasn't allowed his phone out. But he was supposed to know when lunch was without anyone ringing, end of lunch, without anyone ringing a bell. And he'd be lost in his own thoughts and then find out he's the only child out in the playground and then would rush in and be in trouble for being late. But you removed the bell.
Yeah.
And you stopped him from being able to use his phone as an alarm to say this is when end of lunch is.
Yeah.
So come on, we as adults have lots of things like that to help us. How many of us rush from one meeting to another because we are late and the phone's just told us you're doing a meeting 5 minutes?
Yeah.
We do that as adults, yet we got such high expectations for these children at a point where they're going through so many changes.
Yeah, absolutely. The changes. So yeah, I agree. We need to find a workable way, definitely. And different schools will have different solutions, but there needs to be an acknowledgement that a solution must be found. And it cannot be just punishing someone's neurobiology.
So I was doing some research on ChatGPT and asking, why do neurodivergent students struggle in secondary schools? And you probably know the whole list off by heart. But one of the ones I'm just going to ask about is sensory overload. Because that is a big one.
It is a big one.
And I generally, when I think of sensory overload in secondary schools, I'm drawn to the changing between lessons and the non-structured time as being, there's a lot going on, rubbing past people, a lot of noise, a lot of visual stuff. It's all a bit, it's overload.
Yes.
What can schools do to change that?
And again, it's such a important question, but also really wide question, right? Because it comes down to the individual. So it goes back to that sort of education and create self-awareness in that young person of what their own needs are. And often they don't know. A lot of ADHD students and autistic students that would have sensory differences or sensibilities, they will not realize it until you start talking about neurodiversity. So I'm highly sensitive, noise sensitive, and I never realized it until 5 years ago when I started learning about neurodiversity and said, oh, that explains why I could never do any work in the staff room or in my science office, because in the science office, you've got all the teachers talking, students coming in and out, as it should be, because that's how it works. However, if I would have had self-awareness that that's what was happening, that's why I could not concentrate, I would have brought in my noise cancelling headphones a lot earlier. And I would have been able to do work at work instead of having to have been getting up really early in the morning before my kids to finish off work, or working at night after the kids have gone to bed, just to keep on top of things because I was not able to do it. So a big thing is awareness. And then the second thing is modeling. So if some adults, like I was doing in my last year, I was walking around with the noise canceling headphones because they're teenagers, so they want to fit in. They want to be the same as everybody else. So some of them will not want to use, for example, ear defenders.
Yeah.
Right? But then it's about normalizing it. If they see, and there will be in our large secondary schools in this country, you have a minimum maybe of 100 teachers. So roughly around 20 to 25 of them will probably have sensory sensitivities, differences. So if we can start normalizing and modeling, they'll be like, oh, actually, everyone's different. It's fine. What do I need to do to protect myself? And no one, let me break it to you now, no one is the same as everybody else. So you can't fit in all in one because you're all different. So for me, that's a big part of it, educating, create self-awareness. And then, of course, I go back to flexibility. Now, there are some times in the schools where we do really fun celebrations, but they are so noisy that honestly, I'm thinking now that I know a lot about autism, it will push an autistic child. It will dysregulate an autistic child immediately. So can they be excused? Why do they have to be suffering? It's like if you force someone to be slapped across the face during an hour. Like maybe it's not needed, right?
I think if you go back to your prosthetic leg analogy,
Yeah.
if you have a girl come into your lesson with a prosthetic leg and you go, oh, okay. And then you kind of learn how to support them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you think about the desk and the chair and things like that, and you make adaptations. And when you do here and you go upstairs, you make some adaptations. And then the next year, another child walks in with a prosthetic leg and you're like, cool, I know how to support this. I've had a child with a prosthetic leg before. I know exactly what that child needs. And you're probably pretty right.
Yes.
Autism, yeah, no, it doesn't work like that. There's no set rules. When you that sensory question, it's like it's already because it's not a case of here are the top 5 things you need to do.
Yeah,
no, it's flexibility, it's adaptation,
and asking questions,
knowing the students.
Yeah, it's that self-awareness and asking questions. So in my last couple of years teaching, I ran this club called Brain School, and it was a lunchtime club, and it was for everyone who wanted to learn about neurodiversity, either because they felt they were neurodivergent themselves, or there was one of the girls coming because her brother was autistic and he wanted to know more and share her views, which was lovely. One of the girls there, she had an autism diagnosis, and she also identified as ADHD. And she was saying, she said, could you help me? She's really shy. She's such a lovely girl. She says, could you help me? I have this big problem that I hyper focus, and she was using the word correctly. I hyper focus on the question I am answering, and she's a very clever girl. And then I actually don't realize when the time is over and the teacher has actually started speaking. She couldn't even hear that the teacher had moved on. And then she felt really bad that she spent that 10 extra minutes and she'd missed the explanation. So then we started talking about how would that work? Would you like the teacher to let you know? So, no, because she didn't want to be in the spotlight. Okay, so let's look for some other option. What would you do? You think maybe There could be someone that just like lets you know, like a friend. Is there someone, it doesn't have to be a friend, but someone that you trust in your classroom that you might want to sit next to, and they could just, and they're like nice and they get you and you're comfortable, and they'll just like give you a bit of a knock. And then she opened her eyes like, oh, if I could sit next to so and so, she'd be able to do that. And then we tried it. And I said to her, okay, ask the teacher. Because again, it's not about the adults sorting it for them. It's about giving them the empowerment
Yes.
to do it. So that's a fantastic idea. You think it's going to work. Now let's talk to the teacher. Do you think you'll be able to do it? Yeah, I think I can talk to the teacher. And then she sorted it like that, right? So that's an example of how we can, being flexible and listening, get them to sort out their own challenges. But at the same time, what would not work, and you and I know this, it would backfire, is if I go and say, what I think you should do is you need to do this first, that first, because then that demand avoidance and that anxiety response will kick in.
And I in my head, I've already heard, as you said, this teacher say, so you want to make that child a burden on another child or things like, and you hear that, it's like, well, no, because actually what happens is there's always
not
one,
a burden, is it?
When a group of friends go out, there's always one friend who knows where they're going. There's always one friend who's the arranger of stuff, the one who makes sure and goes, hang on, someone's missing, should we give them a call? There's always that organizer. When you have someone who's tapping them and go, oh, we're moving on. Oh, thanks. You'll stop.
That's like a fraction of a second.
But then, oh, I'm stuck. Oh, I'm going to help you because you helped me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's that we teach them differences. We're teaching them that actually you've got strengths, they've got strengths. Work together, you'll both get more out of it.
That is such an amazing and valuable point, Dale. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is precisely, that's such a fantastic lesson if they're able to experience that they can be vulnerable at some moments, but then they can be supportive in some other ones when their friend or their classmate is feeling vulnerable themselves. And how beautiful is that? Because that's what life is about, right?
We're all different.
Yeah.
So we need to teach that and give them as opportunities to learn that we all have different opportunities. We all have different experiences that shape us. Even at an early age, that's still already shaping us into different people. When we're in that classroom, there are 30 different children in there, all different. Some interested, some not, some doing well, some struggling for social reasons, some struggling for what's going on at home reasons, some struggling because they actually can't see the board, but they've never actually twigged they might need glasses because how do they? All these different things are going on.
Yes.
No one's aware.
Yeah.
But actually everyone is struggling in a different way for a different reason.
Absolutely.
Thinking everyone else is in the same boat.
Yeah.
So teaching people that we are different, giving those opportunities to have the conversations, going, well, why can't I miss when he starts talking, because I'm focusing on that. And the person's going, really? And just that opportunity to have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Means that person can ask, do you get a voice in your head when you're having these things? No. All the things like that. You get to ask those differences and be interested in other people and learn about yourself and others.
Yes, absolutely. And it will also, educating young people on neurodiversity and differences, and that we're all different, it will also relieve a pressure from teachers, because often teachers, I mean, being a teacher is an impossible job, right? Like you've got so many children, like, you know, on a normal day, I could see around maybe 200 different students, thousands of interactions. When you're interacting with a child, you're not just having that moment, you're like aware of like everything that comes with that. So it's really intense. So what we don't want is we don't put the expectations that the teachers are responsible for absolutely everything of what these 30 children are attaining. But what needs to happen is that the teachers need to understand about neurodiversity, about these differences, and they need to be flexible and open, and the school needs to provide the processes so that teachers can do that, obviously, but to accept that degree of flexibility. You don't have a calculator here. I always had a box of calculators, glue sticks. I'm not going to waste my time having like half a word about why did you not? Here we go, calculator. And as the children have their build on their own self-awareness as well, they're able to self-advocate. It's like, Miss, I think I would benefit if I could have the slides before the lesson. Would you mind uploading them onto Google Classroom or Teams, whatever the school uses? And I've got my tablet. And why not? If they're saying they will benefit, no, I will give them to you after the lesson. Well, if they're asking me, and then be more open. Like, I'm not the one expected to know how everyone else learns best. Everybody should know how they themselves learn best.
I love the phrase from Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. It just goes with everything. But if you've got that child who's going, can I have the slides before the lesson? Give them the slides. And then maybe later on, ask them why. What was the benefit of having the slides?
Yes.
Oh, because I can do this, 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 and there's a vocabulary I'm not sure, and I can do this. And you might go, I might as well let everyone know I do that. Because that way everyone could do that. And it might help everyone.
It might help everyone, yeah.
But it's that, this is the way I do it, so I'm doing it this way.
Yeah.
But actually, you can learn from children. You can learn a lot from children.
Oh my goodness, of course. I love working with young people because you learn all the time because they know all the new things and they'll if you provide a safe environment in your classroom, you will learn so much more from them because they will share with you a lot more. And it's that moment in the classroom when you have a child that is calling you mom. And then they all like are really, really embarrassed about it. Like you have a 6-foot lad saying, Mom, and it's like, oh, and everyone's like laughing. And that happened to me once when I was teaching. I haven't taught boys for a long time, but this one boy was like, Mom, and then bright red. But then you know that they are so comfortable, right?
I've never actually, because that is a thing that everyone gets dread about, or someone goes, oh, somebody called the teacher mum. But actually, the reason you do it is you feel extremely comfortable. You're in that environment where actually the adult must be my mum because I'm so comfortable.
Yeah.
I'd never actually put it that way.
That's how I saw it always. I've always saw that. It's like, oh, he's so comfortable that he thinks mum is coming to teach him chemistry.
Yeah, that's not how mum would teach chemistry. Definitely not. So one of the things earlier you mentioned about, and it was again just that you talked about 200 students, you mentioned earlier about how rather than having negative, having those positive bits in, not general, but specific positives.
Yeah, specific.
And I think as a primary teacher, because you've got that child all day, you've got a lot of opportunity, maybe if you had said something negative, to pop in a couple of positives.
Yeah.
I think in secondary, it's harder because you've got them for an hour or 15 minutes, wherever long that lesson is.
Yeah.
And it's not a case of, oh, I've done the negative. It's right, they've got PE later. That will give them positivity. No, it's got to come from each teacher. It's got to come. Otherwise, that child will just go off maths.
Yes.
They will go off English, but love PE.
Yeah.
And actually, it's that relationship with that teacher is crucial.
Really important to create those moments in which you can have that positive communication in the same way as when you parent, which you need to make sure that the nagging time is not more than the sort of bonding time. In teaching is the same. So I was always really aware of that. And what I tried was when I set work, so let's say they get on with some work, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, then circulate around and just pick on anything, whatever. Like there's a good diagram. Oh, that's really good. Well done with the labels. Oh, I like that highlighting color. Or, again, if of course, you don't have to push yourself to the limit. Like you don't need to remember absolutely everything that happened last week with that child. But sometimes you will, and then say it. Then you remember, oh, in the last practical, today I could see that you were a lot more careful with the glassware. My bill is not going to be really high on glassware today because whatever it is. And then you are building that rapport with that child. And it's a sense connection immediately puts the nervous system at rest. And when you're doing that as an adult, you're co-regulating is the concept of co-regulation. You're using your nervous system to send the message to that child that everything is fine, and then when someone is calm, then the thinking brain can get on, and then learning happens. But if you're going around creating an unsafe environment where you're trying to catch them not doing certain things, then that's where the problem is. And you can still push them, like if there's something that you need to tell them. Also, the timing is important. Like while they're working, let them work, so say something, but you see that someone is like, oh gosh, that like didn't get it at all, so you can always have a chat to them, oh, come 1 minute, come here. And then there's always a way, but it's that idea of helping them feel safe, I think, is really, really important.
And I think, remember, you are the adult in the room. And if you are realizing actually as a child consistently either not getting it or forgetting their calculator or not on time, whatever it is consistently, surely as the adult, okay, what can I change? What can I change to stop this negative happening?
Yeah.
And it might be if they're struggling with maybe structuring the work, okay, what could I do to give them something to help them structure? Yeah. That's what they're basically, if they're struggling, if you're hitting the same negativity again and again, something needs to change. And with often a small change,
yeah,
you can then actually go, okay, I gave you that and that's really worked. Look at you, you've really succeeded there.
Yeah.
Huge opportunity, huge positivity.
Yeah.
You've got that. You do it again next week.
Yeah. Reminding them.
That's really working. That's 2 weeks in a row. You've got on with it. You've got that. A small change. And you've got to remember these are children who don't understand themselves.
Yeah.
They're struggling to understand themselves. They're struggling to understand their friends as well as learning.
Yeah.
Actually, if you've got that kind of repeating negative, what can I change?
Yeah.
What can I change?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you said that being the adult in the room, part of being an adult is to be very aware of what triggers you as a teacher more, for example. And for me, there was a number of things that, so if people were talking, I'd be like, oh gosh, they're not working. And actually some of them need that. So, but also we've got to manage that. But one of the things that I would say triggers most teachers is if you see a child that you've set up a question and they're not doing anything, they're not doing the work. And then it's like, start the work, but nothing's happening. Now that is the most triggering moment for a teacher, because then it's like, oh, they're being defiant. The conclusion is they're being defiant. Why are they not doing this? And then so many things could be going on to explain the reason why that child is not doing it. They might have demand avoidance. So they might are seeing that the method you've explained is too long and they want to do it shorter, even though you said that that's how the specification tells us and the board of examiners needs to have it. But they'll be like, don't care what they said. In their head, they're having this automatic nervous response and they're like not doing it. Or they might be heavily dyslexic and they haven't had the support. And now you've got a 15-year-old boy who's too proud to say that he can't read this and he can't. And then again, you have a teacher then going, start. I'm going to tell you twice more and otherwise you're out. And then what's going to happen there, right? Or you could have a child that has OCD. Now, OCD is something that is not spoken a lot, but actually more than 50% of autistic children can have an offset of OCD. A lot of the times OCD is mental. So mental compulsions, and that child is not there. That child is trapped by their brain. There are so many reasons why that child is not picking up the pen, but the adult is like, you are defying me.
If they had ADHD, the blank page, structuring it all,
How
that's
do I
what they're
start?
working. So they could be working it all out in their head. I often would do it as, right, what do I need to say, and work through it all, and it helps me see it, and I go, okay, but is that the right angle? And I'm kind of it's all in my head. There's a whole load of stuff going in my head. Just because it's not on paper yet doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that the teachers, I'm not criticizing the teachers, because before I knew about neurodiversity, I would have probably felt really bad about myself if like a child is not doing what I would have thought that they're not doing it because I'm doing something wrong. But that's why neurodiversity training is so important, because teachers need to know that sometimes it's not nothing to do with them, and they're doing an amazing job, and they're like making sure, they've picked on the fact that this child is not working. They've got 30 other kids in the room. They're doing an amazing job, but there's more and it's not up to them. They cannot do anything, and the best thing they can do is in that moment leave it and then ask the child and try and get an answer from the child later on in a calm way. And if not, pass it on to the pastoral team so that they're aware. But it's having that awareness as well of saying, okay, I'm doing my job. There's something here. I need to pass it on, and it's fine, and it's not up to me.
I remember on Super Nanny being told on their great advice, pick your battles.
Oh my God, Super Nanny. What a nightmare.
But there are certain things in there. You have pick your battles. If they're not working.
Pick your battles. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Do I have to pick that fight there? Do I have to?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Oh, yes. No. Oh, gosh. Yes. That is a good advice. Pick your battles. Yes. I actually made this slide for my husband, which I call the behaviour funnel. And it's like a bunch of behaviors you ignore. And some you obviously have to act on. And
but
then,
it might be.
But definitely pick your battles.
Yeah. Be curious. Find out afterwards and go, okay, cool. So you struggle with that. Okay. Is there anything I can do to kind of help with that? Is there anything that would help you? Is it a case of, again, timer or things like that? Whatever it be, again, talk to the child and find out from them.
Yes.
So it's interesting. As we've gone through, basically what we've touched on is don't be rigid. It's all about flexibility.
Yeah.
Every child's different.
Yeah.
And then we hit the joy of rigid behaviour and uniform policies. And I think those two alone are probably two of the biggest things. I.e., there are social pressures. There's all the social pressures and mental health of being a teenager. But actually what the school is doing, I think often the behaviour policy and the uniform policy are the two biggest things that can impact neurodivergent students.
Yes, because we're laughing because I don't even know where to start. Because you are dealing with so much just to get through all the lessons that you have, to get through those crowded corridors, to get through the fact that you're so stressed you have forgotten to eat and drink all day, so you're not feeling good, but you don't really know why, and it's probably school. And then you have someone that at every corner tells you to tuck your shirt in, and that seems to be the most important thing, to tuck your shirt in. Whereas no one tucks their shirt in at work anymore. It's really not a problem. Or with the girls would be the earrings and the size of the earrings. And the thing is, I grew up really differently because I went to secondary school in Spain. And in Spain, unless you go to a private school, and not all private schools have uniform, but in the state system, which I went to, you don't have a uniform. And I know in this country, whenever I've spoken about it, everyone talks about, oh no, because it equalizes everyone. And it actually, it didn't matter. Like, I don't remember thinking like I have less or more than the others. And then also it doesn't become a big thing. What you wear in the morning is like a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and off you go. So, and also the earrings, which I always wore really big dangling earrings. And it's never sort of interfered in my education or learning processes whatsoever. So it's just, I don't know. There are rules. Obviously, there's so many more things that we need to focus on before we tackle, I guess, earrings and rules. But there are things that we need to think about. How much time of this interaction with this child am I having, which is negative, about something that actually, what is the real impact? What is the real impact of wearing a big earring? on their learning.
It's at least a grade at GCSE.
And then, of course, the most serious considerations go to these children that have sensory differences and that they are uncomfortable with this uniform because often they're not of the best materials. And I was telling you before of this mom that was sewing the lining. She was making a silk lining on the trousers of her child so that he could bear it. And that's something that not many people understand, because if you don't have sensory differences, then you sort of don't think about it.
If we think about the kind of the work environment, I grew up in Croydon. I remember going on the bus on the way to college, and this was like 95, and I remember going up to the top deck of the bus, and basically every bloke was in a suit with the same sort of jacket on, and every woman was in one of those dresses or a power suit sort of thing. It was like work uniform, and everyone wore these layers, and they went into the office.
Yeah.
No one does that anymore.
No anymore, no.
What we've learned is actually it's best to be comfortable because you get more out of the employees. Everyone does better work when they're comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So as long as you're not wearing offensive clothing, so I'm here in shorts and trainers.
Yeah.
Because it's comfortable for my feet. I prefer them. It's slightly hot weather, so I'd rather be in the shorts, but I often wear jeans. Now, you might expect me to be smart, and there are times where I will dress smart, but in reality, if I'm doing head thinking, I want to ignore, is how I describe it. I want to ignore my body.
What I'm wearing,
I want my body to not exist.
Yeah.
And I remember when I used to wear shirts at school, I could not feel my body. So I could not tell you in a moment if my shirt was tucked in or not, unless I'd just been to the toilet where I had definitely tucked it in.
Yeah.
I was unaware of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing is, if you're unaware of your clothing, then great. But if you're constantly feeling that collar, because you've got a tie on, which is most blokes at a wedding or somewhere just being very uncomfortable because it's the first time they want a tie since they're at school, or things like that. If you're aware of your clothing, then you're not performing the best. You're not going to be learning. You're not going to be regulated. Even as adults, you're not going to be regulated. So why actually isn't the aim of that uniform policy to make education the ultimate aim?
Yeah.
Everyone should be regulated. Everyone should be learning. We talk about being ready to learn. Then we throw in a behaviour policy, which makes us not ready to learn.
And I think part of it is we go back to education in neurodiversity and awareness. I honestly think that most people don't think about these things because they don't experience them in their families. As education and awareness increases, I am positive and optimistic that people will be more likely to sort of adapt and offer, like, we can see in the primary schools now, they wear polo tops, right? Polo shirts, which they can be cotton. So it can be a bit different. And for example, we've done it in the schools, in single sex schools, where the uniform used to be a skirt for a girl. And now with all of the awareness of LGBTQ, they now have the choice of wearing trousers. So that, again, is a flexible policy. So then perhaps the next thing is looking at other options for those kids. But again, it can be on a one-to-one basis. And the most important thing is to listen and to validate the feelings of children. I always listen to my children, and I've always listened to all my students. When they say something, I'm curious. I'm like, okay, why are they saying this? But a lot of adults do not validate what this child is saying. Oh, no, that's not right. That's not what you're saying. What? Why would they be saying that to you? Because children don't make things up. If they're, first of all, for them to communicate something to you, is that really something is bothering them? Otherwise, they just shrug it off. They're not. So if they are making that effort to communicate with an adult, you need to pay attention.
Definitely. And my daughters, who's just finished secondary school, they have a summer uniform where the boys don't have to wear blazers. They can wear polo T-shirts, and it's great.
Yeah.
And there are other schools who literally, where the head teacher will send an email, and I've seen it on social media in the last few weeks, when it's 30 degrees, head teacher will send emails around going, you must ensure all students are wearing their blazers at all times.
Yeah. What's the point?
Why? If anyone can give me any reason other than someone's a control freak,
Yeah.
there is no reason.
Yeah. More and more schools are calling it differently, like they call it officially hot and they have summer uniform. I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully more and more people will be flexibility is what's needed. And I guess it will all come because a school is still based on a very antiquated idea of that you're educated everyone in a very similar way to like be of a certain way. And it's when you embrace diversity, you realize not everyone needs to be the same. And that is really dangerous. There's this author and researcher called Lisa Feldman. I absolutely love her research. She researches emotions, and she has this book called How Emotions Are Made. And she goes around the world and like documents emotions. And one of her conclusions is that most emotions are learned. So their responses are learned. So because I obviously grew up and I live with two different cultures, the Spanish and the English, Spanish people behave very differently to British people. And the conclusions that you draw with a British eye on the Spanish could be very wrong. And my husband at the beginning, when he was in Spain, said, why is everyone upset? Why is everyone so angry with each other? I'm like, they're not angry. They're just talking to each other because the Spanish people gesticulate and we emphasize and we open our eyes. And if you do that, maybe British and Germans would get a bit intimidated. So it's interesting their responses, but why are we? Because why are the Spanish not reacting like that? And why do the Germans or the British feel a bit more uncomfortable if someone goes up to you gesticulating heavily? And it's because we've learned that is too much or that is okay. It's learned. Right.
Yes. And it is, but we also, again, Catherine, who works, her husband's Scottish, and he's like the Spanish, quite intense. And you're going, oh, he's angry. No, he's just being Scottish. Sorry if I've offended anyone, but it's just him being Scottish. It's just the way he is. And there's a few people who come across that. I'm sort of going, oh, it's right, calm down. He looks, goes, I am calm. And I'm going, yeah, clearly not. But it's again, our own experiences are how we perceive a situation.
Yes.
So if you have someone, I want to say, again, generalizing, Spanish, complaining,
generalized,
could seem quite aggressive, I might feel threatened.
Yes.
Now, my feeling threatened is based on previous experiences, and you were going, oh, you're threatening them. They're like, no, I really wasn't. I was just telling them a story of what happened on the way to work.
Yeah.
And it's again, where we have those differences between cultures, it's the same with neurodiversity. It's that completely how an autistic person is explaining their story, how a neurodiverse a neurotypical, all different. Yeah. We just got to learn to be curious.
Yes.
And maybe not judge.
Yes.
Just, okay, I think this is a bit intense for me, but actually I'm going to go with this and see where it goes.
Yes.
Oh, it's going nowhere. It's okay, cool, it's fine.
Absolutely. And it's even more important when through the school years, through the formative years, you've got these young people. As an adult, you are the one that needs to be aware of your responsibilities. So first of all, you mustn't judge, but you need to have that awareness and that training, that education on neurodiversity, first of all, because then otherwise you don't understand why that autistic child is allegedly being rude to you. And they're not being rude to you. It's the way they are explaining themselves in that particular moment. And then what you do is you say, oh, but we mustn't allow them to communicate like that. Perhaps what we need is to teach everyone to take perspective. So then we teach the children to take perspective. You realize when you speak like this, sometimes if the other person is very sensitive, they'll think, and then you teach that sensitive person as well. Like, actually when autistic people or when this person communicates like this, then they don't mean it. It's just the way. So, when the Spanish people talk, like not being aggressive is the way right? So it's teaching perspective and being the adult that is not judging, but you are the mediator. You are there teaching perspective is so important.
And I think being the adult, we always say that phrase, being the adult. Do you know what I think it really means? I think it really means being regulated.
Yeah.
Which generally means you should understand yourself and be regulated. Now, in your experience as a teacher, working with lots of teachers, how many would you say in the classroom are really regulated?
I mean, no, I would say, the teachers, honestly,
As you
they
said, it's
have
an
to be very
impossible job,
regulated. It's an impossible
and it's
job.
hard to be regulated in that
They are
environment.
regulated. I think they are regulated. I think there's not a problem with regulation, I'd say. Like, they are regulated, but I do think there is a lack of awareness of neurodiversity, and there's a lot of judgment of what a good student looks like, and what listening, what paying attention looks like. So, for example, that's a one that I absolutely love. Paying attention does not look like someone looking at you in the eyes, not doing anything, not moving. If you have an ADHD student looking at you in the eyes, not doing anything, they're not listening to you at all. They're doing something else, but they're not listening. Whereas I remember this student I had, and she used to doodle all over the chemistry notebook. And then it would do my head in because I couldn't concentrate when marking because it was all these doodles that were so interesting. And then I could not, it took me ages to mark her work. So then we came to this agreement. She would doodle in this little book, which then she gifted me at the end of the year. Super clever girl. Whenever I was teaching, she was not looking at me. She was doodling, doodling, doodling. But then I then go and check, didn't say anything, go and check, she can do the work. So obviously she's been listening. Or she's like already knows how to do it and didn't have to listen. But it's not up to me. Up to me is to check that she's able to do whatever we were doing, and she was able to. And the way she got there is not for me to decide in a way, as long as she is not interfering in the learning of everybody else in the room. But if I would make a big thing out of it and say, stop doodling, look at me, you're never paying attention, how do I know she's not paying attention?
So I think the thing is for me is when we're hearing that sort of language, to me, that person is dysregulated. They've got their pressures. They've got all that stuff going on. That child not doing it, that person who's reacting to me is dysregulated. Not completely, but it's that ability to just, oh, that's going on, and be calm with it. And I just think with all the pressures going on, both internally within the classroom, the subject, what's happening the next day, your home life, pressures from your head of department, pressures from the senior leader, pressure from the trust, pressure from the local authority, all that stuff generally means in that moment, you can't just take that second to go, I wonder why.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I just wish that, again, I'm not blaming teachers. I'm saying that you've got all this stuff on you. And actually what we need to do is kind of reduce some of that so that actually in the moment, you feel you can just take a moment. You're not being pressure to get through it.
Yeah.
You can just go,
Yeah.
it's not about me. It's not about my lesson. That child could be doing that for whatever it. But I think the quicker we used to react, and I know this as a parent, when I've reacted because nothing to do with what my child's done. I'm reacting because of work. I'm reacting because I'm busy. I'm reacting because I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a me thing, but I react.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We all can react at times. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you're much more likely to react if what you're witnessing is something that you believe should not be happening, and it's been disrespectful to your job.
Yeah.
Right? Then that's going to, so I see this girl doodling, immediately in my head is like, right, she's disrespecting me. I'm not teaching in the right way because she's obviously not engaged. And then now suddenly my brain starts pumping all of these chemicals that are going to make me react. But if I have the awareness of going, oh, look at her, she's doodling. I wonder if she still is able to do this kinetics question. And I just go around without anyone needs to know that I'm checking. And I'm like, oh, actually, she got the question right. Yeah, she knows. Oh, she's a doodler. And but without the awareness, without the training on neurodiversity and accepting that learning looks different, then you'll obviously react much more likely. And of course, if we're all stressed, then might react anyway.
That's the thing. It is, to me, again, I think we're more open to learning and thinking the more regulated we are. And it is probably a pipe dream with the current education system that all teachers will be calm and again, not blaming it. It's this system that you all go into teaching to make the difference, to support that child, to make a difference, to shape. You do all of that, and then the education system hits you with a hammer again and again.
It is intense. Yeah,
and it is. We just need to going back to this all, that learning for everyone looks different.
Yeah,
we've got a load of children learning how they learn, learning what they don't like, learning what they do like, being in that environment where they're much more independent. All these sorts of things, it's a horrible melting pot for them. And it's those adults that just need to be more flexible and adaptive to meet those needs, rather than just there's one way.
Yeah, accepting diversity in a way, embracing diversity, seeing the advantages of it as well.
So I'm going to wrap it up there. That's a nice pause. So thank you for coming on the show today. As always, I'll be sharing some links to find out about more of the work about supporting neurodiverse students in secondary schools and all the work Susana does at ND Bright Brains. You'll find all those links in our show notes, and they are wherever you listen to the podcast or also on the website. Please go have and check them out, because there's some courses, there's videos, there's lots up there. Thank you for listening to the show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. You'll find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. I think that's covered most of them by now. And just search for the Sendcast and you'll find us. The Sendcast is created and produced by us here at B Squared, and we help to show the small steps of progress pupils with SEND make. But we also have our Autism Progress Framework. This framework helps to profile a pupil's autism and how it impacts them, because they're all unique. It's based on certs and looks at communication, social interaction, emotional regulation, and flexible thinking. And you can build up that profile, and then there's a wide range of strategies to help support them. So if this is where they're struggling, here's things you can do. Visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through the software and how it can help you. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Sendcast. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me too. Thank you so much for having me, Dale. It's been really a privilege. Thank you.
You're welcome. I could have talked for another hour or so. Bye.
Bye.